Good morning, evening, or afternoon. Welcome to the Out of Spec Podcast. I'm here with Mike Breeling, Ben Spreen, and Austin Schieffer. And today we're going to talk about the finally new Toyota Tundra, Mazda's looming Inline-6 power plant, and some more Lucid and Rivian updates, and much, much more. So we're going to jump right in. But first, we do need to thank our sponsor, EV Wash. If you haven't heard of them, and if you care about the environment, you're missing something. EV Wash is a practical way to clean your EV anywhere, anytime. That's what they say on their website anyways. It is actually a really interesting solution. So you see it and you're like, oh, just another car cleaning product. There's a lot of those. But these are actually a sustainable solution, much like your EV, because they can actually come in reusable pouches, biodegradable. So once your bottle runs out, which by the way, these bottles are made of aluminum or aluminium. How do you say it in other parts of the world?
Aluminium.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But instead of little cheap plastic bottles you throw away after every single use, these are refillable aluminum bottles. You can get refill pouches for interior cleaner, waterless wash, or glass cleaner. And it works really well. Honestly, I've cleaned Kyle's Tesla. We saw that last week, which was pretty intense of a project. That was a heck of a way to break these in. I may have used half a bottle already, so I may have to look into ordering a refill. And I actually cleaned my my current Press Zero motorcycle with these earlier in the week too. Also an EV. I cannot guarantee they won't blow up your gas car because it's geared for EV washes, obviously. But actually, you should probably use these if you have a gas car because you have a lot more environment to care for. So yeah, thank you for our sponsor. They do plant one tree per bottle or pouch sold, which is really cool. So giving us more oxygen. And we have a discount code, 30% off of your wash kit if you use discount code Out of Spec, all one word, 30. Let me throw that up on the screen here. There we go. Out of Spec 30 with OOS capitalized for 30% off of your wash kit. So let's jump right into some news and talk about the Toyota Tundra. It has been updated for the first time in 14, 15 years. And it actually looks pretty good. With a caveat, maybe. Austin and I were watching the video last night that Toyota unveiled with the really cheesy announcer voice. And we think the TRD Pro looks excellent. And the rest, I don't know. I'm on the fence about the weird giant grill thing that kind of just droops into Infiniti. Although it is kind of like a really cool Confucius mustache. So I go back and forth. What do you guys think?
I can't wait to see the chrome delete on a white one now. It's going to look like a face. Oh.
Yeah. So what do you think?
The interior looks incredible.
Yeah, it's been 14 years, I think, as you mentioned, since the last complete redesign of a Tundra. Now, Toyota does notoriously take their time, apart from maybe their Camry or the Highlander, to redesign a car. But I think the grille is way too big. I get what they're trying to do. Huge, imposing pickup truck. TRD definitely looks a lot better, the TRD Pro. But I agree with Ben. I think the interior is where this truck's going to shine. Even over its competitors, I would totally go out and buy this truck tomorrow over a GM or a Chevy or a Ford, mainly just because Toyota reliability, I think, is going to be there. And another interesting aspect is they do offer a hybrid, but it's not a hybrid in the form that like the Ford EcoBoost hybrid is. It's more of a hybrid to produce more power and torque for the vehicle rather than actually drive electrically, which I find really interesting. An interesting step for Toyota. They must have some data there that told them that, hey, this is what our customers are looking for if they were to buy a hybrid pickup truck. Real quick, I think the taillights are silly as well. I hate the shape. I think they could have just done a much more like Tacoma-ish shape, but bigger. Like, I think that looks awful.
Yeah, it's like someone just shoved a C-clamp into the back and they were like, oh, good. They like
it's
C-clamps.
So manly.
It's a tool. Yeah.
I don't think you can make a good-looking tail light on a truck because they all have the same design constraint of being very skinny, and not interesting. So I think that's fine. I think they
The
look cool.
Ford,
They
the
look
Lincoln
aftermarket almost.
Mark LT had
Okay, that's
taillights
good.
that went into the bed. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Now, I think I missed something about this hybrid thing. I thought this is going to be the hybrid out of what was it we drove a while ago, the LS500H, which is
Yes.
like a V6 hybrid. But does it not run with the electric motor ever? Is it more running like a mild hybrid?
From what I understand and from what I've read, it is more like a mild hybrid, just providing like a power boost to the truck. I
Like
don't
an
think you can
e-torque
actually
or
run it.
whatever.
Yeah. I don't think you can actually run it on just electric mode itself.
Interesting.
But I love that screen. Look at that. That looks great.
This not how James May would order it? Beige with
If
real
James-
wood.
That's a very
James
nice
May
looking
ordered a
interior,
pickup
actually.
truck.
Though I have James May taste, I guess, but that's a very nice looking color.
That looks
I think.
great.
Seven.
I mean, that's way better than anything Chevy makes right now. I'm sorry to GM Chevy fans, but it's true.
This is the
Ford might be
1794.
better.
This is the 1794 edition, so the year James May was born. This is really, really a cool truck, and it is it is their true aim to compete against the American heroes, I guess you could call them. And what's funny is I saw some reports of people really excited about the tailgate because it is just a tailgate. It's not the weird dual folding origami funky thing with the stick that pops out of it. It's just like a tailgate, and for some reason people were really excited about that.
I still don't understand we have a 16-way tailgate or we have the split opening tailgate like Ram has. I don't see what was wrong with the normal tailgate. I like Ford's idea of having the step and the stick or the grab handle.
Yeah.
I think that is a good idea just to get out of a truck, but I do not like the multi-function tailgate or any of that.
It looks like it can go in electric mode up to 18 miles per hour. After that, engine will always be running. So I guess the engine probably won't shut off during coasting, which is a little unfortunate. But it'll feel like a normal truck for those people who want normal truck stuff, I guess.
So seeing these specs here, there's a comparison against the F-150 and the Ram 1500, which it is the 2021 models of both of those. But if you get the new Toyota Tundra hybrid, you will best both of those in both power and torque, and almost towing. The Ram has it beat by just a bit with that V8, but 12,700. Oh, that's the Ford F-150. 12,000 pounds for the towing capacity for the Tundra, which is very usable. And then there's of course the TRD Pro, which this one actually I like the look of, except I don't like the LEDs below the Toyota badge. But I like the non-chrome grille. I think it works better.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely helps the look of the truck. I still think grills are way too big. Why can't you just take the bottom of that, grill right there where it's black and just make that body color? Or maybe they didn't want it to look gawping, I guess, or just wide mouth catfish or something. But I don't know. The front is the weakest part of this truck, in my opinion.
Are they all with the A-pillar black, or is that just the TRD Pro? Because that kind of gives it a cool,
A and
futuristic look.
A and B pillars are both black.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I think they all are. Oh yeah, the TRD Pro gives you that weird textured camo, and look at this racing red interior. That's stunning.
That's a look. Not sure how I feel about that. Not a huge fan of red
cluster. How about that?
Yeah.
I think it's an optional digital gauge cluster on the.
I like the tailgate though.
Have you ever seen TRD Pro that big on a vehicle? That's font 2000 size.
So let me clarify. I said I liked the tailgate. What I liked about the tailgate was that black strip and the 3 amber lights there. I think those are cool. Mm-hmm. The TRD Pro is definitely a little much. I actually preferred that on the side where it currently is on those trucks, on their bed sides itself.
Yeah.
And just keeping just a simple Toyota across the tailgate there would have been a lot better in my opinion.
Yeah.
But look at that. Camo makes it to the seats too.
I can't wait for the new Sequoia TRD Pro. Looking at this, assuming it's going to look pretty similar, because that will be a cool vehicle.
Yeah, and people have already done some renders using this.
I mean, I'll be sad we won't get the Land Cruiser. I think we're not getting that anymore. But hey, Sequoia TRD Pro with some of these looks, that could be pretty sweet.
But
right?
well, is this motor the same that's in the Land Cruiser, or the next gen Land Cruiser,
I
basically?
think so.
The twin turbo V6.
I think it is.
To follow up with Austin's question, it is blacked out A and B pillars. Looks like all of them, unless this has another special package.
That's probably TRD off-road. But I think you're right. I think it is blacked out, which is cool because it gives it like that overhanging, futuristic look.
Yeah.
It does make a difference for sure in the design of that truck.
I thought that press video that we saw, Jordan, was interesting because they really wanted to drive home the fact that not just the TRD Pro was capable off-road, and they had some footage of the other models doing some, I guess, more off-roady driving. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They want to make sure that you know that like you don't have to get the TRD Pro to get a capable truck, but the TRD Pro definitely looks the best.
Yeah, the other models equipped with the TRD off-road package that they showed. But I'm sure you could off-road with the base model. I'm sure it's still more off-roading than most people.
What's interesting about this, like you were talking about that black A-pillar kind of floating roof look, that's probably one of the next bigger automotive design trends. Like we've seen the light bar make a huge comeback recently. And I mean, outside of, say, I guess Nissan's been doing it and Land Rover's been doing it for decades, basically. It seems to be a thing everyone's kind of styling into their designs recently.
And I think you forgot Mini's been doing that too. Mini has done that. My Mini looks like that.
Yeah, I decided, it was too small to mention, pun intended.
It is nice that they're just different. Like a lot of convertibles have been doing that with the frame around the windshield being a different color, typically black.
Audi, they highlighted in the metal, which is cool. They like the stainless. It's always been nice.
Or all the new Miatas have black windshield surround no matter what, and then the Fiata is black on the Abarth or silver on the base model.
Good visual example there.
Well, on the other end of the spectrum is the Audi Q4 E-Tron. So they are undercutting a lot of the competitors as far as price, or like at least matching it. I think it looks fantastic. I especially love that they're showing some of these with like a bronze wheel. I think we've talked about that before, how much that's so great. But I wanted to see what you guys thought of this thing. Besides, what flew out to me from this article is actually a fairly competitive range if you get the medium or high end. The base model is 212 miles, something like that. Probably less on the EPA though. That's actually the WLTP, and so pretty rough comparatively to some other cars. But the power, it's under 200 horsepower, which 0 to 60 is 9 seconds, which is crazy. And then if you upgrade to the mid tier, it's 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds. So shave off a whole half second. And then the high end e-tron is 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, which is slower than the slowest Mustang Mach-E by 1/10 of a second. Fun fact.
Looks great though. That high end e-tron model, that looks wonderful. Yeah, it is surprisingly slow for all electric.
Not sold on the grille design, but I think the rest of it is like a 10 out of 10 for styling. The performance is a little disappointing. Like, I don't know what an Audi Q5 2-liter or 6-cylinder, does as far as acceleration goes, but I suspect it's a bit faster than one of these. I don't know if we're actually going to see that not in second model in the US, because that's the smaller battery with the dinkier rear motor, and maybe we don't get that. Maybe we get, because I have no idea what the ID4 is now to think about it, 0 to 60, but that's 200 horsepower. I bet that's going to be the entry level in the
Well,
US, most likely would be my thought.
Yeah, because it is the same platform as the ID4. But
So it
Audi,
wouldn't make sense for them to have a step below it if we don't even get the Volkswagen below it here.
yeah, Audi insists it's completely unique as far as tuning and dynamics and everything, even though it's the same relative architecture. But I don't know. It is the biggest touchscreen in Audi, so that's cool. I do like Audi interiors, except I just don't like the really clicky buttons. But I know some people love them, so to
Well,
each
my
their own.
e-tron had no buttons.
Oh,
There's no touch force sensitive.
It had a couple clicky buttons, like 3.
Yeah, because I had the premium trim that's right down at the bottom instead of those being capacitive buttons or actual buttons. I'm actually surprised by this car by how slow it is, considering that the big e-tron I think is a second faster in all its trims apart from the GT, which is going to be pretty fast comparatively. But I like the front. I do wish they just blacked out the grille, which I'm sure you might be able to do in like a black optic type package. But I love the headlights. I love the taillights.
Are great, and the profile is, I think, really nice.
Yeah, that looks. I mean, that's a good looking little SUV. I mean, it's like a Mazda CX-5, but pure electric. Even Mazda can't make that right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I bet this is going to sell. It's a EV that, I mean, performance is obviously not its main focus, but it's going to be a nice kind of practical EV for people who want something on that spectrum. Like, if you weren't, because I think it's hard to include Tesla in this discussion. For some people, they're looking at both, but you'll meet certainly a large swath of people who won't consider Tesla for, one of many reasons, or they want to stay with a brand they already know and trust. So, in an EV, a slower car does tend to feel faster and you can use more of that performance. Maybe that acceleration won't be that big a deal. I still think we won't see anything less than the 200 horsepower version in the US, though, because at that point you're getting into territory that's no longer impressive for someone coming from the current base model, really.
Yeah. And they're saying it'll be under $45,000 in the US, not including up to $7,500 rebate. Which is funny. The article originally said $75,000 rebate, but I guess they just fixed it.
That's a good one.
Good old typo. But yeah, I'm excited to start seeing these. We need to start ditching some of the 20, 30-year-old cars that really look sore to the eyes and replace them with anything. And this is a good contender. So I like it.
Has great wheels.
Yeah.
I know that's a small thing, but
Audi usually has really good wheels in general.
Agree. I agree.
Yeah, I'm usually not a sucker for manufacturer wheels, OEM, but it's solid.
Now here's the question: would you do this, or would you do XC40 P8 Recharge or Polestar 2? That gets tough. Polestar 2 actually really makes that tough because that's a great looking car.
I think the Polestar I would have just out of being something super unique and very, very cool looking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Price wise, though, XC40, if I can get the Bowers and Wilkins. Anything for the Bowers and Wilkins.
Yeah. One interesting thing, I don't think it's mentioned here, but in the US, and this is more of an Electrify America thing, but both Volkswagen, Porsche, and Audi have these charging deals with Electrify America. So when you buy a VW ID4, you get 3 years of basically unlimited charging on their station, which is pretty good. Porsche gives you 3 years of 30-minute sessions because their car charges faster. That's a way for them to pay less money to have that deal. And Audi only gave you 1,000 kilowatt hours of charging sessions, which on the e-tron was like 10 charges. So it wasn't a whole lot. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder if they're going to have a new deal for this because it's, might have better margins in the same way the ID4 does. But that would be an interesting thing to see because I know Volkswagen pays a huge amount of money for the privilege of that 3-year unlimited program that they have set up with EA, even though they're the same, well, not the same company, but they have ties. They don't get a special deal on that, because of how they operate.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because it is cool to see the incentives, and some people take severe advantage of it, like that Model S signature red I saw. with 200,000 miles of free supercharging. So it's a lot of gas savings. But actually, on that note, I wanted to mention an update from Rivian. We're just basically Rivian journalists, and we also do other things on the side. So they are going to do a membership plan, which will include free charging as well as LTE connectivity.
Well, free.
Yeah.
Membership.
Free if you pay.
Yeah, membership too. Yeah.
Gotta love semantics.
Yeah.
But you will, it comes with a full year with the vehicle, with a purchase of the vehicle. So that's kind of cool. You can at least try it out, see what you think. Because it is amazing how expensive some of even just the LTE plans are for some of these cars now. So to have charging and LTE bundled together, I would be really curious to see how good this is. And it also includes Rivian off-road side assistance, which is awesome because it's not just roadside.
Yes. I like the name, the off-road side assistance. It's a nice little because where they put the little hyphen works perfectly there.
Yeah.
That I see is a tremendous value because I don't know if there's fine print to that, but do you know how much off-road recovery costs?
Oh, yeah.
It's insane. Now out onto the fact that you could be out of charge and off-road. Ooh, that's some value. I would actively take advantage of that to push the limits of a car or something.
Yeah.
Well,
that could be a couple $100 easily just if you're stuck at a beach.
I am 312 miles into the wilderness. I totally thought that was round trip when they said the length of the trail.
I'm really shocked there's no DC fast chargers at the top of this mountain.
Yeah.
I really thought there would be.
I thought you guys had a better infrastructure.
Yeah, PlugShare said there was something up here. I don't know.
I'm just imagining those watches for climbers where you pull the thing and the GPS signal goes out and they send the whole rescue team to get you off the mountain or whatever. I'm imagining people doing that with these, it'll be the weekly, there's these Tesla cam articles of, oh, look what a Tesla camera caught. It's like, look where this Rivian was. It's somehow got recovered under, coverage there.
Underwater, yeah.
I want to push the limits of that program. I think we should drive it to the Arctic Circle. That's my goal. I mean, I want to do that with either the GX or a Rivian, whichever one I feel like I have time to do it with.
I told you are debating selling your Tesla. Rivian is calling your name.
Yes.
Do it.
Yeah, if you buy a Rivian, I will come take delivery with you.
I'll go to Antarctica with you. I'll do that.
Yeah, what I'm picturing is a Rivian stuck in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and they call that special number, which even if you have no service, they probably have direct satellite link. And a huge Rivian branded Chinook helicopter, which if you're too young to know what that is, it's a cargo bob in GTA. That comes and picks you up and then takes you wherever you want to go.
Cargo bob.
So
I like that.
Rivian,
airdrop a couple batteries or something.
Yeah, there you go.
So Rivian is working on their charging infrastructure as well. The Rivian Adventure Network. So 35
I like the Canadian one up there, up to Vancouver.
Yeah,
it looks like.
A couple little chargers up there, up in Newfoundland too. So it's pretty cool. Alaska and Hawaii. That's good to see.
Is this not just the EA map, or are these their own chargers? I just was looking maybe I'm mistaken.
See, that's what I'm not sure of, because
it's Ford said their charging pass network is big, and I'm like, well, no, your network is just all the other charging stations. Yeah. It's ChargePoint and EA and EVgo under one app or something. I don't know. They don't have a ton. Not enough to fill in a map. Neither does Tesla. That looks like Tesla's map from a year or two ago, really.
Yeah, they're so behind the curve. And it says by the end of 2023, which isn't there already this many EA stations? So I think it is Rivian's proprietary network. The Rivian Adventure
Network. They plan to install over. Okay, assuming that's not a weird phrasing or something from whoever wrote this article, but that's a lot of DC fast charge points.
Isn't the purpose of the Adventure Network to have them kind of off the beaten path, if you will? So something like national parks, state parks.
That's a good idea, because a lot of those fun places are not always easy to get to in my experience.
Yeah, unless if there's RV plug-in, like you have what do you call it, shore power connection. But yeah, I do think this is their proprietary network, and they're going to be really hitting on like they're putting chargers where there aren't other chargers for going on adventures, which I think is really quite cool.
And they're exclusive for Rivian owners. And they are plug and charge. So
where I've heard that before.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, 200 watt charging initially, up to 300 in the future. It's pretty strong right off the bat.
I want to say that that's amazing, but I just read that up to 140 miles of range in 20 minutes, which is like not setting my pants on fire with speed necessarily. But
Used
that's
to the Taycan.
Yeah, I think that's just because you said Taycan, because like 18 minutes gets you pretty far along. But this is also a brick.
It speaks to the aerodynamics. I'm
sure it'll be good. If it has a good charge curve, that's all I care about. Like, I want it to stay high deep into the pack, because that's really where you get utility. Because if it doesn't, if you're doing those short little charges and hopping charger, it's fine. But the second you have to do something outside that, like in the Model 3, it just drives me nuts. That last 30, 45%, whatever it is, just feels really slow, because the first
whole first 70%.
Yeah. So they're also going to have 10,000 Rivian Waypoint charging points, which are just the little level 2 slow charging things. So yeah,
I imagine those will be out on the trail.
Yeah, trail campsites. Like, I mean, if you have it plugged in overnight at a campsite, that's a pretty good amount of range. So
I'm a little sad to see that. I think it's the max charger that's built into their Rivian. I think it's 11.5 kilowatts is the onboard charger. But I really wish they would have had like a 19.2 kilowatt AC charger built in. That would be ideal.
What I just saw that was cool is that those chargers are actually open to the public EV chargers, as long as you have the J1772 plug, which is really good on them, because Tesla would never do that.
And so that's just for the slower chargers, right? Tesla, I think, did that with their destination chargers, where open to whoever.
You could use any of them with an adapter, but also Tesla, and not many people know this, they make a high power wall connector, destination charger, as it were, with the J1772 plug on it. You just can't buy it. It's whenever they do destination charger installs right now, they put in like 2 or 3 of the regular Tesla one, and then they'll have like 1 or 2 more that have that universal plug, which is kind of interesting. A nice little touch. But I think they need faster AC charging. That would be a thing I would pay for on that car, because at 11.5 kilowatts, let's just round that down to 10. If it's a 135 kilowatt hour battery pack, it's 13 hours to charge, which, I mean, you're sleeping, that's usually fine. But like on a road trip at a hotel, you're not going to replenish that, especially at something like 6 kilowatt. Most level 2 chargers are going to be slow. Small little detail, but I recently started noticing that Porsche's been pushing out their 19.2 kilowatt AC chargers for their destination charger type program, where they're giving those away to business owners who apply. And that's the speed I think we need to see more of. That's putting, 50 miles of charge in the battery an hour versus 25, at least in Rivian terms.
I wonder if we'll see that potentially in future updates for the models, because like you said, Ben, I think that would be a huge value add, especially if you're like off-roading and you're needing to just stop in for like an afternoon and there's not much else to charge. Like you said, that's a very slow charge if you don't have a full night to charge. So
I mean, it's an afternoon versus a night, and I think that makes a difference. 3/8, of the benefit is worth it. If it's something like, I save 20%, then it's not worth the charging speed increase. But, I think as EV adoption moves along, we'll want to see more of that, almost 20-ish kilowatt AC charge out of most public stations. I think that should become the new 6.6 that we see nowadays.
Well, also with Rivian, more news, of course, with Motor Trend, is doing the Trans-America Trail. So I think basically the first leg of those videos is out, and it's really pretty intriguing.
So Ben wants to do.
So yeah, it starts out with saying, call out to the long way up. So as if Rivian's doing 13,000 miles of rugged terrain from Patagonia to Los Angeles wasn't enough. They did it in the States. So the Trans-American Trail, for people who don't know, it's basically like a route of kind of interconnected, non-paved roads running from the Atlantic to the Pacific. I think it starts somewhere in South Carolina, maybe.
I think you can pick it up in. I mean, what they did was NAD said the Outer Banks of North Carolina. In fact,
yeah.
So you can get it both ways, I think.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool, and I mean, it does speak to basically the off-road characteristics in it. I mean, it's a good. I mean, it's a brilliant marketing ploy for Rivian too, just because it's suggested as an adventure vehicle. So they're not doing like, oh, you can drive from LA to New York. You can do a cannonball run in this. It's like you can do a completely off the grid, so to speak, like just wing it. Like, I don't know. It's very intriguing for people who maybe even people who wouldn't normally buy a vehicle to do that. Because some part of the people who would buy this would be EV enthusiasts who may have never had a truck or a Jeep or a Lexus GX or anything like that. And they might suddenly get one of these, take it on a trail, and just be bitten by the bug of off-roading, overlanding, whatever you want to call it, like what Ben has experienced with the GX. So it's pretty cool to see this, especially like early news. Like they're not doing this like 5 years in to try to like revitalize old news. It's just before the public even really gets their vehicles, it's showing what it's capable of, and hopefully the public will try to do some of this themselves. I'm sure we'll see lots of YouTube channels pop up of here's what I did with my Rivian.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Spreen taking it to the North Pole.
I was going to say, I already have a plan, like if we, on the way out to Colorado, the only way we're going to go there is Trans-American Trail as far as I'm concerned. But I really have been wanting to plan some sort of silly trip I like the Arctic Circle because as a concept, it's like on a map and you can point to it and go, I'm going there all the way far away. But I also have this strange urge to try and drive to the furthest north points you can possibly drive to on the eastern, side up in Canada. So I don't have to cross the country first before going up, but you can't quite hit the Arctic Circle that way. So,
or you could go to like the northernmost point of the U.S., which is somewhere around Barrows, Alaska. That would be a long trip from where you live.
That's the one reason I'm like
unbelievable.
Yeah. That's the one issue
We'd have to drive through Canada
Alaska thing is it's such a long drive just to get to the part where you then have the adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently it took these guys 43 days to do the entire trip.
Wow.
From Motor Trend. So
when you're off road, you don't really do a lot of speed. So
yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. So as of this recording, only the first episode is out, and they're going to do a 5-part series. And they've already mentioned multiple flat tires, which is expected, I think. So
yes,
what I'm
carry extra.
Slight tangent, but what I'm really intrigued by is the potential of all this new technology coming out with tires. Like, I mean, we had like run flats, that was a thing, but they're terrible for a lot of reasons. But I guess good for certain ones. But there's all these companies developing tires that just don't need air whatsoever, which make them much more resilient. We already have seen that on like Mars and lunar rovers, but having that trickle down into the public would be pretty cool.
I mean, Michelin, I think, is making one that they want to sell to the public in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have test ones on a Mini right now, actually, that I've seen pictures of.
I've seen these for years, though. I wonder if they must have a consistent issue preventing them from bringing it to market as far as maybe durability goes, because as fragile as it can seem, the current tire design is generally pretty sturdy overall. And I feel like we would have run into by now someone trying to offer that airless tire.
I think it's got to be inefficiency or, like you said, durability long term because of how heavy they probably are without air. All the rubber structure or whatever they use to give it its form and keep it from being just flat on one side. I would think that would really eat into efficiency.
And now that I was just thinking, you can't adjust the pressure of it to compensate for weight differences of a vehicle. So then you are kind of locked into they're going to have like firm, soft, medium options or something. So they have different like load ratings maybe. But
And when you're off-roading, how do you deflate your tires for better traction? You got to throw a new tire. You got to have your off-road spares. Just
the beauty of an off-road tire is how much abuse the sidewall takes, and it'll be interesting to see how that would play out on those airless tire designs, because they look a little questionable in that area, fragile in that area.
Chintzy, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'd be curious to see what genre comes first, because the issue with the run flat tires is they just lack so much performance, and so I wonder if they're going to figure out an airless, more performance minded, like picture maybe not Die Hard track, but like just like Michelin Pilot Sport type thing, versus like an off-road tire that doesn't have to withstand like crazy lateral G's, but you have that whole durability thing. So
I feel like we would have seen it in a form of racing if it could be utilized in this sort of a method.
They put a lot of money into R&D on this race car.
Like if a Formula One car doesn't have it on it, then we're probably not going to get it. Yeah,
we're going to get anti-gravity like Star Wars speeders before we have tires that will do what we want.
I mean, I've seen the airless tires on like a couple like riding mowers and like small forklift type vehicles that you see around an airport, like tugs, but I've never seen them on anything that goes above 15 to 25 miles an hour either. So
yeah, makes sense.
I would think with electric cars too, that might be like the last place we see them, because if it's additional unsprung weight that the motor has to move, that's hugely eating into their efficiency. And I don't know, the Rivian is already a brick, but
well, what's not a brick is the Lucid Air.
Good segue.
Good
segue.
Yeah. So the EPA range is officially rated at up to 520 miles, I believe, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's the highest range ever given out by the EPA by, 120-ish miles compared to the Tesla?
Yeah, so what's the WLTP, like 1,000? Like,
I mean, it must be close to 600, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or it would be if they sell them over there. I don't know if they're going to sell the Lucid over there right away. Probably not, I would imagine, for a little bit.
US-based.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's extremely impressive. I think the least efficient model is still like, well over 400 miles of range.
Yeah.
So
and fast and powerful and well built, allegedly, from the one article who's been able to actually drive one.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive, though. I mean, I'm excited to see these on the road, and I know they're expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. I mean, you have to have profit margin to be a successful car maker in the beginning. So
yeah, I mean,
look at where Tesla started. Model S,
exactly,
incredibly expensive
was the same
for a while.
Price.
So I think they have every right to kind of price it there and start off there, because looks like they're doing it with a product that is well worth the price as far as material design goes from the beginning. I also love that the non-performance model is still something like 800, 900 horsepower. I forget the exact figure. But I remember being like, wow, that's a lot. And then it was reading somewhere like, oh, that's the regular one. Very impressed.
Yeah. And this article, our partners inside EVs did a comparison of the Lucid Air Dream Edition versus the Tesla Model S long range. And it is, the Lucid does have significant range, over 500 miles, but the Tesla has over 400. I guess unless you're on the highway, but it's close. It's high 300s. And then top speed only 155, and 0 to 60 is only 3.1 seconds. It's like, these are incredible numbers, but the Lucid does beat it. But at what cost? About double.
Yeah, literally.
Look at that highway. I mean, this is again EPA test, which could be a little flawed for comparing since we don't know how they do real. But the highway and city range are the same.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Awesome, because that's the thing. Like, Tesla really does optimize with the EPA test. You can't blame them. It's what I think any company would try and do normally, and that results with a number that looks really high, but a real world range, when you're actually traveling where range matters, that's not quite so strong. I think there just needs to be, like, someo's got to do a really well controlled test that's just like, put it on the highway, 70 miles an hour, control for temperature, put it on a treadmill for all I care. And like, I just want to know if I'm on the highway going 70, what can I get ideally? Because that's really the easiest way to compare them. You look at those tests people do, in the real world.
So do you think that highway range being the same is a product of, because one of the videos I watched of the Lucid was talking, I think it was a CEO or somebody was talking about how the reason why it's so fast is because they wanted to make it the longest range EV, and long range comes with big battery, and big battery means high output. And I'm wondering maybe that the highway range might be a product of the motors not really having to work too hard because it is such a large battery pack. Could be aerodynamics. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
Maybe it could also be a product of that car having not, I guess there's two ways to look at it. I'm looking at it as Tesla doesn't have as good of a highway range. They're not as efficient there. Maybe the way I should be looking at it is they're efficient there, but they're very efficient for city use. And then the Lucid might not be as good in the city range.
That's true.
But it could have a very high efficiency when cruising. Maybe it's less efficient with its regen usage or something. I don't know. But I think to see that gives me a lot more confidence in it. That's certainly exciting to see. I don't know if the bigger motor thing plays into it or more power output, because then we'd see, something like, it's tough to know, because when you have a different motor, you're going to have a different efficiency of that motor. So I don't know if there's an easy way to scale it up without, affecting that sort of a test in a sense. Bigger motor versus smaller motor, there's just going to be different designs in each one.
I feel like you'd have to get the 21-inch wheels of the Lucid Air, though. Sacrifice some range for those beauties.
I'm sure the EPA is 19-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So
the wheels at the top look like GTI wheels. Speaking of Audi wheels.
Yeah, these are the 21-inchers.
They really look like just massive GTI wheels. I can't remember from which generation, but it's the exact same
Mark
design.
6 GTI, yeah. They look like the wheels that was on that GTI with the W12 in the back or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
I bet it is.
They remind me of Golf R wheels, like recent Golf
not
R
quite,
wheels.
but they kind of do have that vibe, I guess.
It very much has
big
an
holes.
Audi look to it, which is a compliment. Like we said earlier, I think Audi knows their way around a wheel. But the other interesting thing on the aesthetics of this car, watching that video, I didn't realize that Rivian has a patent just for those headlights. They're like nano LEDs, and the headlights have their own cooling duct.
Yeah, that was interesting to hear about.
I was like, what? That's the most obscure thing, but it's kind of one of those things where it's such a out there car that, like, of course they have their own patent for, like, yeah, they rethought the headlight because you need to do that. Like, I don't know, it lined up, but I'm just like, I don't know, it's just interesting.
I mean, to shrink something that small, you have less surface area to dissipate heat with, so you have to be creative about it in some way. So
that's true, and I bet it really helps because the angle of that nose coming down is quite sharp. It's got a very low like hood line, so I bet a big part of that was because they were able to fit such a bright headlight in that small of a space.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, the whole design of the car, I think we've talked about it before, but I mean, it's extremely aerodynamic. I mean, I know that we are split on the rear of the car. I think most of us don't really like it, but the front of the car and the profile looks good, and the interior should be amazing, even better than the Tesla Model S refresh, from what I've been reading about.
The refresh is very good, though, I will say.
The refresh blew my mind.
I was so impressed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you went in it. Did you? It was plaid, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could think of to ask. I know, like, smart commentary on it other than like, whoa.
Yeah, I got back into a performance Model 3 and I was like, this is slow. And then I got into my Miata at 6,000 feet altitude and I was like, this is not even moving. Yeah, the plaid. I mean, it was like, yeah, I was literally in sensory overload because it was so fast, but it was also so nice. Like, the interior quality felt very, very good. And I actually, most of the ride I spent in the back seat, and I was like totally happy back there. I was chilling. I could have thrown on a movie on that center screen and just fell asleep. because it's so quiet.
The new back seat area is much more comfortable than before. I've ridden in the back of a lot of Model S generations, and the only ones that were like vaguely comfortable were the super executive rear seats you get on like 85D and P85D, which I'm pretty sure there's like 600 of those in the US.
Yeah, not a lot.
They don't fold down. They're two kind of more bucket-like seats, a little armrest in the middle. And they were so cool. I just love those.
It's so cool.
But they don't fold, which is like a huge issue, I think, for a lot of people looking at the space and practicality of the car. And they had heating in the back, actually, is the first Model S to have that. That's why the app has the temperature and media controls in it, because when they launched that package, they said, oh, and you'll be able to control the music and your climate settings from the back of the car. But they never engineered the screen because there was such a low take rate. So instead, they just added those features into the app, which is kind of a clever way of getting around it. But it was sort of one of my favorite little like details I learned over the years.
That was really funny. I'd be super curious to see what the Plaid or the latest refresh of the Model S feels like. I remember when I was working there, they introduced the Raven, and the Raven from the previous felt like a huge jump. It's like, wow, this feels a little bit more solid than before, like well made, if you will. I didn't necessarily like some of the materials they chose for that, but build quality I felt took a huge leap, and it sounds like the most recent upgrade is like exponential compared to that even.
Mm-hmm.
So they just add also the like noise cancellation, like the active noise cancellation?
It was on the specs
update?
Originally, but the new update added it, I think. Yeah.
Okay, because I think I was in it before the new update, and we also didn't get to hear the sound system, which I was really excited to hear, but I just forgot. I was distracted by speed. I don't know.
I mean, when you're in one, it's sort of like it's a full-time job to like experience that level of acceleration. Yeah. And the friend of mine who let us go for a ride and drive it, he's had a ton of supercars. And he said something I thought that was really good way of summing up like the Plaid or just high performance CVs in general, which is no one can do like, you can't just floor one of those and say something that sounds smart afterwards. Like just you don't have the mental capacity. It's like, the thing everyone would say is usually an expletive or like, or it's like a groan because it's just so much force is what everyone does. Like it's a universal reaction, but like no one's going to say like, after they do it, oh, that feels like, and create some sort of like poetic prose about it. Yeah, or metaphor. You're not going to say a metaphor after Florida.
No, yeah.
It's just, like you can't be flowery about it. It's just raw acceleration.
Usually it's an explicitive. And from my experience in launching with people in the cars, it's like you said, a lot of times a gasp of like, like they just don't expect it. They've never felt anything like it. Some choice words. So it's always
you don't get out and go.
What the Lucid's going to be like. That's going to be a good car too.
That's going to be insane.
They're talking some performance.
I'd love to drive them both back to back and then just get out and actually do say something really like superlative. Just, yes. I found the Lucid to be slightly more mellifluous.
Copious.
I think after you accelerate in a performance CV, you're limited to like 1 or 2 syllables max. That's the next word. It's like a hard cutoff on the second syllable.
Fun fact. I think that is my favorite word in the English language, though. Mellifluous means pleasing to the ear. For those
you can't use that in the ear. You get out of like a McLaren and be like, that was mellifluous.
Yeah, or LC 500 or something.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about Mazda.
No way.
Right.
No.
So
the Mazda owner.
The updated CX-5 has been unveiled. Very minor visual refresh, essentially.
It already looked good. They didn't need to.
It looked wonderful.
They're like, this perfect thing we have, let's make it better. But what is also in the news, which has been around the mills for a while now, is their impending Inline-6 engine, which is very exciting because pretty much all of our news sites are saturated with this is going EV, this is going EV, this is going all EV by this time. And Mazda's like, we're developing an Inline-6.
Or even like turbo 4 cylinders, like you don't hear about inline sixes. I feel like you haven't since the early thousands.
Yeah, what is this?
Well, Mercedes brought it back recently, admittedly.
And so
With
did
good success.
JLR.
JLR, yeah, I know a couple.
See, I
We got a couple
expect
more.
it from JLR. I feel like the British will always have it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
They're
They
always
need
going to be
to,
doing the
yeah.
thing that's a little like unusual at any given time, like sticking with supercharged engines still on some models, like forever. Which is
like-
cool, and they create a great driving experience, but like they get 22 miles per gallon, best case scenario in a car. So
There's, some European or some British company is going to be like, we've developed an inline-6 EV, and they're just like putting 6 like motors in front of each other, and all going.
6 battery packs.
We had to keep the
Inline-6.
nomenclature.
Yeah,
So this was looming around because it was like, oh, they're going to develop a new Mazda 6 and make it rear-wheel drive and an inline-6 engine, which is a beautiful combination. And if they throw a manual in there, I mean, a lot of people will sell their souls.
I mean, they won't, but
I'm looking
Yeah,
through them.
they definitely. I think that'll be like Mazda has a reputation here lately for making wonderfully handling cars, and I can't wait. I think the CX-5, even if they said that would be rear-wheel drive too, right? There's rumors of that being rear-wheel drive.
Yeah,
But
Like
that
the
sounds
Explorer.
so cool. Like,
I think they said it's going to be all-wheel drive, but it's going to be on that rear-wheel drive platform. I think I found a clarification on that one recently.
okay.
So this inline-6, is it going to be like attached to some like mild hybrid technology, or is it just a straight motor with no battery, electric assist, or anything like that?
Who
I
knows?
think it's just a straight motor. I mean, Mazda's also kind of raw, sometimes to a fault. They're still sticking with their guns on that 6-speed automatic, while everyone else has 10 speeds.
I wonder if they're just going
Eight-speed,
to
at
do like
least.
they do with the refreshed ND and just do like very high compression, high output.
They could, yeah. I mean, by doing nothing but reworking engineering, they kept the same displacement, same cylinders, and got like 15%, 20% more power.
Yeah,
So
I
it
think
would
they
be
should
really
put,
cool.
like a big turbo on it, but I don't know.
Tell me you're a Fiesta ST owner without telling me you're a Fiesta ST owner. And rumors are saying they'll probably call it the CX-50, kind of like their CX-30, which
kind of throws me off a little bit.
well, yeah, it's confusing because the CX-30 came out
It's the
to be a
predecessor of this.
fourth CUV, but then they have ditched the CX-3.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's a replacement, but it's not. And I feel like if this is the same thing, it's just confusing. But Mazda was so good for so long with super easy names, and now
Yeah,
here they
now
go.
they're going down the routes of everyone else of just
Yeah.
making stuff up on the spot.
I can't wait for the CX-90.
90s kids will be like,
Or the
yeah.
CX-100.
Jordan's gonna buy the new MX-50 here in a little bit.
Well, because the EV is the MX-30.
Is it?
Wait,
it is. No, hang on. What is the
Yeah, the
other
EV
SUV?
name
They have
confuses
an
me.
MX-3, and then they have another
The MX-30 is the
They
EV.
have a CX-30.
They also have a
CX-30. There it is.
Yeah.
God, it's a little
So wait, is
confusing.
the MX-30 just the CX-30 but electric?
Sort of.
Why would they not
Yeah,
split
because
it
it's
then?
The
got
front
like
end's way different.
it's got the little doors off the i3, like the coach door or split
Yeah.
J
Oh,
Cruiser, whatever you want to call that
It's the
style door.
RX-8 door. They're
I mean,
bringing back.
RX-8 door, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd
two-door
take
SUVs always work. Like, just ask Range Rover. They worked really well with the Evoque. Like, that worked out great.
I think they
Well,
should
they
make
only
it a
did that because they were
convertible while they're
also
at it.
making the convertible, which was going to have to be two-door.
You guys ever
That
ridden
is
in
the
Two-door
best one.
Evoque was a product of someone saying we should make a convertible more than anything else. Which, by the way, if you've never been in an Evoque convertible, they are as amazing as you think.
Have you guys been in the Murano? What's it called?
Cabriolet.
Cross-door
Yes,
cabriolet.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
actually ridden in one of those, and that was
They're
one of
great.
the best days of my life. That was
It's
so
one of the
you are
heaviest
blessed.
doors I've
Yeah,
ever been.
it's such a
like
heavy
the door is
door.
so heavy and big.
and it literally feels like people always throw around land yacht. I really felt like I was in a pontoon boat. Like I really,
It's really
did.
flexy. It's not a very
Yeah.
sturdy chassis.
They have such a quirky following. And there's actually a really funny Facebook group that's like,
Oh, I'm in it.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm too.
it's like everyone hated it, but at the same time, everyone loves it. And it's like car enthusiasts love it, and like normal people are like, "Oh, that's ugly," and we're like, "No, it's beautiful. It's a masterpiece."
It's like the Aztec, you know?
Yeah, same crowd as the Aztec, and what else?
How dare you compare the Cross-Tour
Yeah.
Cabriolet?
I think
Greatest
any
piece of
car that's
automotive
incredibly
engineering.
unique is going to have everyone who hates it, and then the people who love it is going to be the strongest following possible. Like you look at
PT Cruiser.
the Murano, PT
Yeah.
Cruiser, whatever it is. Like there's these groups of people, like in that Cross
HHR.
Cabriolet Murano group. There's people talking about like, oh, I forget it. There's an acronym for it. NMCC. I think it's
Yeah.
NMCC, Nissan Murano
Yeah.
Cross Cabriolet or whatever
Yep.
is what it is. It's like, oh, I've had my NMCC for this many miles. I love it. People, always comment on it. And then the car's always got a name. His name's Shelly or something like that, which I think is great. Like, I'm glad people are getting that excited about cars. So
I mean, name a better garage, like a PT Cruiser convertible, Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet, and an Evoque convertible.
that's the dream.
I don't know about the
How
first
about
two.
an Isuzu Viacross, Pontiac
Yeah,
Aztec, and I don't know what's another thing.
I only want unibody SUV convertibles in my garage.
But so every time I think about this, do you want a V8 retractable hardtop convertible with a manual 6-speed? Look no further than the Chevy SSR. Like, amazing.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you put
the
it that
manual
way,
is very rare. But
it's true.
I'll take the HHR SS instead. Thank you.
the
Panel van
HHR
only.
panel
The
van.
panel,
Yeah, you gotta have
yeah.
the panel. That's
We
way
all
cooler.
watch Doug DeMuro. Yeah.
So before we close, there's one more subject I want to touch on, and of course, Nissan.
Oh, God.
So there's talks of the Nissan Skyline 4-door coming to the US. Or is it just to Japan? Well, this is what's confusing because the Skyline is actually already in Japan as the Q50.
Q50.
The
And-
updated
by the way,
Q50,
it
that
is
updated.
9 years old or something in
Yeah.
America. So,
very Nissan
This
in
also
that.
just dropped, so I'm throwing this in there. The 2022 Q50 arrives with
wow.
literally nothing new,
It
basically.
looks the
Wait,
same
and
as
more
the-
standard tech. Is it got a
More
new
standard
Standard
infotainment?
leather.
Oh, do you want to know? Do you know what they added? Yeah, it's now leather is standard. Which
I didn't know you could get an Infiniti without leather.
Oh, you could.
Probably
and it was
synthetic
awful.
leather. Could you
if
get cloth?
if you
Was it
tried,
cloth or was
if you
it
No,
tried,
it was like a leatherette and it was like vinyl. It was basically like a
Oh.
vinyl work truck seat. It was terrible.
Oh, that's
'Cause it-
nasty.
to be nice and gentle, Infiniti's leather is not very good. It must be like the leftover scraps of what's left of the leather that they throw in their car. In the Q50 at least.
yeah. So they still have pretty much everything the same, except they now have wireless Apple CarPlay, although still wired Android Auto.
Okay.
But that's-
Android always gets the butt of it. But
That's like-
wireless Apple
But
CarPlay
is it on the same exact screen it was previously?
yes.
Or did it? Okay,
have-
so
they
that's
have-
interesting. Like, I'm
Looks
surprised
the
they're able to
same as
retrofit that.
2015.
Yeah, this is
2014, I think, is when this car came out.
2013 is when we first got them.
Oh my god! You
Gets
don't
worse.
even know.
But yeah, so
And it wasn't amazing in 2013.
No, yeah, it was.
I
Remember
actually,
when that came out? They made a big deal about it having the Intel inside because Intel made the chip for it. And then not long after that, you stopped seeing the Intel co-branding because they didn't want to be associated with it because it was such a laggy piece of like technology. They're like, oh, we should brand our name on that. What they did with it, our technology was not what we were hoping.
yeah. So over in Japan, they already have an updated version, which let's see, yeah, here, 2021.
So it literally just looks like they put a Maxima bumper on.
It's not, yeah, it's
It
not,
is.
X50.
it's not super updated. Oh wait, the rear looks a lot
Same
better though.
headlights.
Like that
Okay,
looks
yeah,
pretty good.
that's kind of paying
I
homage
mean,
to the old
but it's
just
TR
still-
taillight.
LED bars to circles from line.
Yeah, it's still very minimal. It
All of
actually,
this-
I don't know. I just don't.
Can they put a big wing on it?
You
if
can
it's a
get Pro
Skyline?
Pilot
Dang.
on it. That's Pro Pilot Assist is a great safety system. I actually thought that was good in the Nissan Leaf.
Can you get that on the Q50 in America? I think
Maybe
you
not
probably
in the
can. 'Cause I know
US,
you
I
can
don't
get.
know.
I know
You
you
probably
get
can. I think you're right.
auto cruise and lane to keep and all that.
I
But
think I
really,
see
the
the
only
button.
changes
So
that
this is-
they've made
Oh,
have been
this-
like they've nip tuck the headlights and taillights. They
So I
put
think you can
metal
get
over the Bose speakers. And that's
It has a limited Pro Pilot. It's not the blue button with the
No,
Yeah, like
yeah,
the
I think
road.
it's just like
Yeah.
lane bouncing versus whatever it
So
was.
if you're spending 50 grand on a sedan, I don't know why. It's hard to justify Infiniti's existence sometimes.
Well, to be fair, it's probably not 50 grand. You're probably going to get like a $7,000 repaint and 5,000 off. So it's going to be more like 39 after
Yeah.
everything's all said and done. So
I just
plus
want
a
to
lease
know,
deal where they just give you it for free or something.
like you
if
said,
tell
Jordan,
people about it.
there's so many other things you could have for the money
Yeah.
that
You
would
could
re-
have a Maxima Platinum for less.
It's
and
probably
the same
nicer,
car.
to be totally honest.
Might be.
Yeah.
I think the
It will
interior
feel
probably
nicer
is.
on the inside. Yeah.
It has
Now-
real leather.
Infinity. All of this will be forgiven. All your sins forgiven. We'll say only nice things. All you have to do is bring out that GTR powered version of it that you teased years ago, the El Rouge or whatever it was, named after the corner on Spa. Do that. I will drive GTR drivetrain in the Q50. The rest doesn't matter. We're okay with it then. Just please.
And a big wing.
Big wing. Yeah, big wing on top. Yeah.
Gotta have a big wing.
Yeah.
How, I mean, I don't know. Does anyone remember that concept? I thought that was going to be the coolest car. Because like the idea of like
That could be
GTR
what they end
four-door
up making.
sedan.
I'm kind of at a loss at why they haven't used that GTR platform for something in the Infiniti lineup.
That's a good idea.
It is such a like solid. I mean, it's a little bit old at this point, but it's Nissan.
Yeah.
to be expected.
You know, maybe
It's
throw a
good.
different
They have
gearbox
no
on
money.
it or something that, you know,
They have
updates the drivetrain experience a little bit because the GTR gearboxes. I have driven one. I've never experienced a longer 6 to 3rd gear downshift in automatic mode. I didn't click pedals. I just left it and put my foot down. I've never felt a longer downshift in my life.
That's why in
Like,
Fast
it
and
was
Furious
pretty
they're
rough.
doing this with the shifter.
Yeah, they got.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you got it. Like
Flat
it's
shift.
good 1 gear at a time on power, but other than that, you know.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
Nissan's-
actually, it could be slower. It wouldn't even have to be as fast as the GTR. It could be heavier
Yeah,
and
but
luxurious.
nicer,
And still be
yeah.
cool.
That's what blows
Actually,
my
that's
mind.
a really good idea.
What blows my mind
Infinity, you can start paying us anytime you'd like.
is there are people who are out there buying brand new GTRs for what 150 grand? What are they now?
Like 120.
nowadays, yeah.
Whereas instead you could have a Mercedes
S-Class.
S.
E63 wagon.
No, just the Mercedes GTS. What's the
AMG
little
GT
Oh,
AMG
four-door.
GT?
AMG
Yeah.
GT, yeah.
You could have a slightly used one
I
of those.
could get them new for that.
You
for
get a
that.
very good 911.
Yeah.
You could get all the F-Type SVR V8 you want, and that is a
Yes.
great car. Sounds
Audi
amazing.
R8.
Audi R8. I was gonna say AMG GT.
R8's that cheap? I didn't realize that.
Oh,
I
you can,
don't
get-
know.
you can find it for 50 grand. Yeah.
I thought we were talking new.
No,
though.
I think-
new is it's got to be fair. Got to go new,
I think
right?
if it's brand new, probably not an R8, but you could get like an RS6, something super cool.
RS7, yeah.
I
It
mean-
gets you a lot of like high, M8s competition.
Yes,
and
yeah.
you can get a lot of great car for the
I think
money.
they just released the M5 CS. I don't
Plaid
know why you
Model
wouldn't
S.
get that. Yeah,
Plaid Model
Plaid
S,
Model
good one
S.
There's no shortage of like just under $150,000 performance vehicles out there. That
Yeah.
is a really hot segment. That
hot,
100 to
especially
150 range
sedans
is really
and
strong.
Pretty sad in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah,
I know it is. But I think that was, I'd have to look at inflation data, but I wonder if that was the sub $100,000,
Oh, it was
super
I'm sure.
competitive thing.
20
I think it's
years
just
ago.
all moved up, with
Pretty
inflation.
much. Yeah. Well, it's a solid show. Thanks for joining us. Once again, quick shout out to our sponsor, EV Wash. They plant a tree for every product sold. So definitely
So
give them
please
a
buy some.
yeah, buy some. Support the folks who support us. The code again is Out of Spec 30 for 30% off your wash kit, and that is Out of Spec 30, no spaces, capital O, capital O, capital S. And we are Out of Spec, and we are at lots of things. Twitter is where you can see a lot of stuff, especially what Kyle's up to. Hopefully he'll be back on the show pretty soon, but he's still in Europe, but pretty close to coming back over here.
Yeah. We might
And-
need a whole show dedicated to his trip.
Pretty much, yeah.
You might need a couple.
Yeah. So check out all those crazy YouTube videos he's been doing in Germany and Norway and everywhere in between, France. And my Twitter is Jordan_Schiefer. And we've got Mike at M_Breeling. Austin is Instagram at Flywheel Films. And Ben is Benji_. OOS. And we will see you very soon in another show.